The holiday season is almost here, and like with every winter, people are looking to take vacations to new places. Do you plan on taking a trip? Maybe to one of the amazing locations within Mario Kart Wii? In this video, we'll be ranking every track based on how safe they are. Let's see which tracks are the most practical. We're gonna start with Luigi Circuit, go all the way to the end with Bowser Castle and 64. And I think Luigi Circuit is actually a very safe environment. Now, yes, it's a racetrack, so you have to deal with cars. You could possibly get hit, you could get run over if you're a pedestrian, but there are so many people out in the stands. The roads are really wide, there's grass nobody ever drives on. So, like, with people being out in the stands, even if somebody were to hit you or you were to be injured, authorities would probably be called right away. I think you'd probably be totally fine, so we're going to go ahead and actually put Luigi Circuit in mostly safe. I say mostly because it is a racetrack. Meadows is also, I feel it's probably a very safe environment. If you manage to get on the other side of the fence, there's barely any cows. You don't have to worry about anything driving along that road, as long as you don't, as long as you're not trying to get hurt on Meadows. Part of me wants to put it in completely safe. Just go to the other side of the fence and you have nothing to worry about. But cows can be aggressive. I have met some aggressive cows in my lifetime. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in completely safe, but it's going to be the bottom of completely safe. So the other completely safe tracks will end up being above Meadows. Mushroom Gorge. This track is horrifying. It's not safe at all. You're bouncing around, you're having to hope that you won't fall into a trench where, I mean, realistically, in the game, Lakitu just puts you back on the track. In real life, you would die. I'm thinking this goes in very, very dangerous. There's not much to say about it. I mean, honestly, extreme lack of safety precautions seems more appropriate, because you can see there's this wooden bridge. The whole track should not be held up by an old piece of wood. Wood does not last forever. Now, driving on the actual mountainside, as you do for most of the track, I feel like that's okay, which is the only reason I don't put it in You Will Die. I think that having to bounce on the mushrooms is scary. It is very scary, you could die, and just being on a vehicle, even if you do land, you're landing from a pretty high distance. That's gonna shake you up quite a bit. Realistically, you could survive this one. Toad's Factory. So, Toad's Factory is an interesting one. There's not really any huge places for you to fall off and get horribly hurt, but there are the stompers. If you get crushed by one of those stompers, it's lights out. I guess there are a couple small places you could fall, but most of the areas where you can fall out of bounds are actually in water. So worst case, you could ditch your car or your bike, and you could swim to safety. This is another one where there are lots of toads in the crowd in the beginning. So if you were to get hurt on another part of the track, maybe one of them might come looking for you, make sure you're okay. So I'm going to put Toad's Factory in very dangerous. I also put it here because the people trained to work in a factory know what they're doing. Mario Circuit is similar to Luigi Circuit in that it is a racetrack. There are big patches of grass and off-road, but on this track, grass shortcuts are a lot more common. They're done basically anywhere there's grass, like big grass patches, there's also shortcuts. There also isn't a crowd surrounding like the entire track. It's pretty much only at the beginning, and it's only a couple of people. It's like a couple toads and some shy guys, I think. Throw in the fact that you've got a chain chomp to worry about. That chain chomp, there's really not anything in the real world that we could compare the chain chomp to know how dangerous it is, but does not seem like a super friendly creature, not something I'd want to run into. All of this being said, I'm going to be extremely gracious with Mario Circuit and put it in Take Caution, because I don't think it's horribly dangerous just to be there. If you're there, but you're parked off in a certain grassy area, like over, behind the trees, or like right outside of the cave in some grass, I think you're probably fine. It's far less safe than Luigi Circuit. Next up we have Coconut Mall. So Coconut Mall is an interesting one because it's a mall, and you would think that would be a safe environment. The drivers outside, they're very dangerous drivers. They aren't driving on the road like you would do in a car. They're just driving back and forth, taking up both lanes. Very unsafe, but similar to Luigi Circuit, it's got a crowd basically through the entire track. There are shops with people in them, you know, piazzas in the shops. I think Coco Burger has at least one piazza, and escalators have piazzas at them, so you're safe in that if you get hurt, someone's gonna find out. I think I would put this just behind Luigi Circuit and mostly safe. The only reason I put it behind is because there are the cars. The cars are definitely not the safest drivers to be around. Alright, DK Summit. It's going in extreme lack of safety precautions. I mean, this is similar to Mushroom Gorge. Well, it's really not, because it's supposed to be a snowboarding resort. But just the fact that, like, they don't put you on a ski lift, they shoot you out of a cannon. And then when you're going down the mountain, there's places you can just fall, and who knows how long you fall before you hit the ground. I mean, seriously. Now, if you are a very trained snowboarder, if you are, you know, top of the line, I don't know any professional snowboarders, but if you're really good at snowboarding, you might be able to make it through DK Summit without horrible injury. But the fact is, if they want this to be a resort, they really got to fix it up. They got to board off anywhere where you can fall off. They really should. I mean, I think that at best, with a bunch, just total renovation, this could go in dangerous, but it's not going in dangerous. It's beyond dangerous. Next up is Wario's Gold Mine. So, similar to Toad's Factory, I think that in the right hands, this is a pretty safe track. Like, if you are trained to operate or to work in a gold mine, then I feel like you can probably get around Wario's Gold Mine as high as a take caution, as safe as Mario Circuit. But the fact is, not everybody is trained to work in a gold mine. You can fall great distances. I mean, you can fall down, even falling down to the houses below on the regular part of the track. But if you fall in the mine, I don't think there are any crowd members on this track. All of the houses are super far down, so I guess if you were to fall outside, somebody would probably figure out. They would see you lying on the ground. I mean, people gotta live in those houses, you know? This is not as safe as Toad's Factory, but it's right behind it, I think. It's in very dangerous. So next up we have Daisy Circuit. Daisy Circuit, I feel like, is actually one of the safer tracks in terms of driving. If you are going to drive somewhere, Daisy Circuit's a good place to go because there's multiple routes throughout the whole thing, so you can't even guarantee there's going to be traffic. There is a crowd, Mii's, and I think it's just Mii's standing on the balconies of some of the houses towards the beginning. I guess it's pretty much safe. I mean, it is a racetrack, and I do have one thing. I think I would probably put it in take caution, but there is one thing that just bumps it down to dangerous for me, and that is the shortcut. The shortcut is literally a horrible prank. It is a scam. You go up this big long staircase, and what is at the top? You fall. You fall a great distance because you walked up some stairs. I think because of that, I think there's just too many things that are just too dangerous to put it in the same tier as Mario Circuit, so it's down in dangerous. Koopa Cape, so this one is a bit of a doozy. I haven't thought about this one almost at all. That river is possibly the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous things in this game, and let me tell you why. It's all like a big pool of water. It's all connected. With those buzzers, those little electricity things, just imagine this small distance of water getting shocked over and over by those things. Not to mention just hitting one of those things itself. I mean, that's gotta hurt, right? Being in the water, touching the water, that could kill you. I mean, it's like, I can only imagine the stress of the characters as they're driving through there. The only thing keeping them safe is their rubber tires. Yeah, Koopa Cape, on top of the fact that it's like, you know, it's on a mountain and there's all sorts of places you could fall and get hurt. I appreciate the fences and the things blocking you, but I'm gonna have to say this one is very, very dangerous. I think, it's extreme lack of safety precautions because there are so many different ways that you could get horribly injured or killed on this track, and I'm just not down with it. Maple Tree Way. Alright, right off the bat, I'm putting this in very, very dangerous. Almost everybody climbs a tree at some point in their life. You might fall, you might get hurt. Now, Maple Tree Way is a huge tree, so big that you need to be shot out of a cannon to reach the top, and I think it is very, very dangerous because if you fall, that will result in fatal injury, potentially. I mean, you might not fall. The branches are very big. It's like the whole thing is like a big trunk. you're never really at risk of just falling. I think the most dangerous thing, besides, I mean, you know, the launch pads and the jumps and all that, is the net section. I mean, the net. You get bounced around so much on that net. The opportunities for somebody to fall or to get hurt, it would be a huge mess. Grumble Volcano. I'm trying to think of where an appropriate spot to put this is. I think it'll probably go in extreme lack of safety precautions, because thinking about it, I mean, the heat alone is hard for anybody to bear. Being in that hot of a location, even if it's just for the average race on Grumble Volcano, which is probably, I don't know, 2 minutes, 15 seconds roughly. There's meteors shooting down. I just can't in my right mind put this in the same category as these 3 tracks. I'm going to put it at the top of You Will Die, because I think if anybody were to go to Grumble Volcano, at absolute best, they would leave with horrible injuries that they never recover from. Next up we have Dry Ruins. So Dry Ruins, it's interesting. It's very hot because it's a desert, the sun's out, you know it's blazing hot, but there is a lake. So worst case, I mean, if you're dehydrated, assuming that lake is fresh water, which it almost definitely is, you could drink some water out of there. It looks relatively clean. You could also go inside of the ruins. That seems like that would probably be pretty cool in there. Very well ventilated, good shade. It's made entirely out of stone, so honestly, I think I might put this in Take Caution, because the only real danger about this track that I can think of off the top of my head, it would have to be those things, you know, the little pillar things that crash down. That, along with the pokies. The pokies I don't think would ever, like, kill you. I think you'd just get hurt by them. The pillars could kill you, so you have to be very cautious of that. But I think that it's probably safer than Daisy Circuit. Next up, we have Moonview Highway. Moonview Highway is exactly how it's described. It's a highway. I don't think that it's safe in that, I mean, the way that people drive on this track, it's ridiculous. I mean, I live in California, and I'm saying the way people drive on Moonview Highway is just ridiculous. If you look, especially in the boost ramp section, like shortly after the toll booths, people are just crossing over all the lanes, and you don't know which lane is going one way and which is going the other. It's nonsense. I think that the saving grace of this track is that there is always an audience. There's people in these cars, and I mean, we can only assume that they're not all totally heartless. If you were to get injured, if you were to get run over, somebody would pull over to help you. If you were to get horribly hurt here, the toll booth workers would have to help you out. I'm going to put this in dangerous. I don't think it's a Take Caution. I definitely don't think it's a mostly safe or completely safe. Like, if you're good at driving, if you are somebody who has to drive a lot, let's say you live in a super populated city and you're used to having to drive with crazy drivers, I feel like Moonview it's an okay place for you. I guess it's almost sort of like how Goldmine or Toad's Factory, it's like, if you're trained for it, if you have experience around that kind of stuff, it's not that bad. Bowser's Castle, yeah, you'll die. Bowser's Castle is, I mean, there's thwomps everywhere. There's lava, so it's the same heat issue as Grumble Volcano. He spits fireballs at you. There's the spinny little pinwheel lava things. I mean, I feel like this one's almost easier to fall off on than Grumble Volcano in some places. If you fall into lava, you don't want to fall into lava. This track is just horribly dangerous. I could almost I'll put it above Grumble, because I think it's almost in the same tier as maybe a Koopa Cape. But it's like Koopa Cape if the water was lava. It's just, it doesn't pass. It doesn't work. Rainbow Road, this one's pretty simple. You will definitely die. I almost want to give Rainbow Road its own tier, but I think that would just be a little bit silly. You can't breathe. You're in space. None of the characters in this game are wearing helmets. Now, we could argue about Mario logic and, oh, well, no one needs helmets in Mario Galaxy, and whatever. That's a topic for another day. But, I mean, if you were playing... But let's say, I mean, we're talking about outside of the game. If you, as a human being, went to Rainbow Road in the same conditions that the characters in this game go to Rainbow Road, you would 100% not survive. I mean, it doesn't help that when you fall off the track, you still have totally normal gravity down to just hit the Earth's surface. Even if you hit water, you would hit it too hard. You would not survive that. On a more positive note, next up we have Peach Beach. Peach Beach, I think, is honestly completely safe. Well, actually, in the beginning stretch, you have constant supervision from the Piantas and you know, the various characters. There's a big cruise ship. You know, if you were visibly injured, someone might spot you. They might pull over, try and help you out. But, I mean, as somebody who's driven in the Peach Beach waters in-game many times, I can tell you there's not any animals out there. There's not any sharks. There's not any whales. It is the ocean, so there is the risk of drowning, but, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. This is going down. This is mostly safe because you could potentially drown in the ocean. That's something that could happen. Even though the waters are pretty shallow, I'm going to have to put it mostly safe just because of that. Next up is Yoshi Falls. Yoshi Falls, I mean, I feel like this is kind of a mix almost between Koopa Cape and Peach Beach. It's safe. It's just there's waterfalls. You don't want to fall that huge distance of water down into the bottom. I think if you were to do that, it seems that the water's deep enough to where you wouldn't hit the ground. From that high up, landing on the water would definitely hurt, but I think the water's deep enough to where you'd survive. And that's really the only, like, potentially killer thing about this track. Even then, there are the wooden bridges, so you wouldn't really fall if you stay on the wooden bridges and you're totally safe. I'm going to put this in mostly safe. I'm going to put it, I'll put it right behind Peach Beach, right above Luigi Circuit. There's no supervision. There's no crowd watching you. You don't know you're going to be safe. It's a very lonely track. If you're careful, you'll be fine. If you fall, you'll probably be okay. You might end up in the hospital for a little bit, but you'll survive. Next up is Ghost Valley 2. I'm going to put this in Take Caution, I think. It's like there's nothing here that can kill you, but it is a very far distance to fall. If you fall, you can't see the ground beneath you. You never know when you land, so especially with the walls constantly breaking down, I think it's not as bad as the pillars that can like crush you, but it's also not as safe as Mario Circuit. I think it's something you got to take caution if you plan on visiting Ghost Valley 2. It's not a safe place, but it's not a dangerous place either. Mario Raceway, I think this one, it's not quite as, like, it totally just scrapes the very bottom of completely safe. And the reason why is because it is a racetrack similar to Mario Circuit or Luigi Circuit, and it's got supervision, but only in the beginning. It's just there's so much grass, there's so many hills. I mean, I think this is the ideal track to have a picnic on. You could just get away, you wouldn't have to worry about anybody else. I think that Moo Moo Meadows is still safer, and earlier I was thinking Moo Moo Meadows would be the bottom of completely safe, but I think it's Raceway. You stay away from the track, park out on the grass. It's not like the piranha plants are going to chase you, they're all rooted in the ground. You'll be okay. Next up we have Sherbet Land. I think an appropriate place to put this would be Dangerous. So, the reason why, there's icebergs. It's like a frozen wonderland kind of thing. When you fall in the water and get respawned, you are actually frozen when you respawn. Now, that's the game's polite way of telling you that if you were to fall in the water in real life, you would die. You would freeze alive. Sherbet Land is not a safe place by any means, but it's also like there's enough track for you to stay on to where I guess if you're really cautious, you'll be okay. I don't think it's as dangerous as like a Moonview Highway. Well, I think they're about the same for completely different reasons. I think it's a better way to put it. Take the wide lines, you'll be okay. You know what? But you could also slip and get an injury. Honestly, okay, my thoughts are starting to change a lot about this one. I think it's actually going to move down to very dangerous. I'd consider it more dangerous than Moonview Highway or Toad's Factory or Gold Mine. It is in the bottom of very dangerous tier. Alright, next up is Shy Guy Beach. This one's tough. I can't decide. I don't think it's as safe as Peach Beach because the water is definitely less shallow. It's a lot deeper. There's no supervision at all. And the bombs. I didn't even think of the bombs, actually. I'm going to put it at... I can't decide if I should put it at, like, the bottom. I think I'm going to put it in Take Caution right about here. So as we know, the water here is mostly pretty shallow, but there is a huge drop-off. I just think that, I mean... the bombs really take a toll on this track. The crabs, like, I was thinking of the crabs earlier, and it's like, there's crabs on beaches in real life, and they don't bother anybody. But then I thought about the fact that it's like the bombs, that's pretty bad. There's a ship that is actually shooting bombs at you. That's, yeah. I think that also goes in very dangerous. I think I'd put it behind Sherbetland. Next up, we have DS Delfino Square. I think this one's probably pretty good. It's, you know, there's a drawbridge, but you just wait for the drawbridge to go down, then you can cross, you're fine. There's always an audience. You're being watched, so if you were to get horribly hurt, you'd survive. You'd be okay. The water, I guess you don't want to fall in the water, but really, it doesn't seem that bad. Kind of narrow streets. I feel like this track is really safe, actually. I'm going to put this one in mostly safe. I think it's safer than Luigi Circuit, safer than Yoshi Falls, safer than... I'm going to put it in completely safe. I think this is the safest track so far. That is not the right track. Oops, my bad. I think this is a completely safe one. If any track in this game is safe, it's Delfino Square. Next up, we have Waluigi Stadium. This one, I think, is similar to a gold mine or a factory. You need to know what you're doing, because if you come here and you're doing your, whatever, dirt bike arena stuff, you could get horribly hurt if you're just walking around in here. This is really meant for a specific purpose, but I think that if you're good at what you're doing, it would be pretty safe. Now I'm thinking about the fire, I'm thinking about the, I mean, if you hit one of those Piranha Plant cutouts, if you're getting head on with one of those, that's some major damage. I'm thinking this is going to go at the very bottom of dangerous. I think that it's, like, that's assuming that you're using it for the right purpose. There's also the fact that if there's any track in the game where you're being monitored, it's this one, because there's literally a monitor showing you at all times. So if one of the millions of crowd members surrounding the entire track doesn't see you get hurt, the monitor will. You'll almost definitely get some help if you get injured. Next up is Desert Hills. Desert Hills, the only real safety threat, I mean, there's the fireballs, so I guess that's a safety threat, and there's the pokies, which they aren't super pleasant either. But the real safety threat here is the fact that it's a desert. It's very hot. The sun is mad that it's so hot. You can literally see he's angry. But there is a lake. The lake in the beginning is kind of the saving... That makes it a lot safer. I would put this one at the bottom of Take Caution just because I think that... I don't think it's safer than Daisy Circuit. I'm going to put it here. I think that right here, beneath Daisy Circuit, but safer than Boonview. It's also the fact that you're on hills, you could trip, you could get hurt. I haven't seen any scorpions here, but just given that it's a desert, we don't know for sure. There very well could be some. GBA Bowser Castle 3. It's the same concept as a Grumble Volcano or like Bowser's Castle. It's surrounded by lava. This is gonna be burning hot. I think I'm gonna have to put this one in You Will Die, but it's not quite as bad as Bowser's Castle, Wii, or Grumble Volcano. I think it's the safest one that will kill you. All right, here we go. DK Jungle Parkway. So I think this is actually safer than the N64 version. In the N64 version, some weird, I don't know what they are, would throw these little spiky fruits at you. And they would bump you around, and if you got hit by one, fun fact, you would actually lose your entire time trial race. You'd have to start over. Mario Kart Wii, that doesn't happen. Now, there is still the aspect of it being a jungle. There's probably ticks out there. There's the water. You definitely don't want to fall in the water just because of how high a distance you'd be falling from. Though I think you'd survive, you'd probably get hurt. There is some supervision. There is the cruise ship, the boat, going back and forth on the river. I'd say like 40% of the track you'd probably be seen by the boat. But if you did get hurt, it might be, I don't know. I think this one's definitely on the safer side. I would put this as high as like right about here. It's safer than Ghost Valley 2 because the risk of falling, you're not going to get that hurt by falling. It's also not as safe as Mario Circuit in that you could fall in the water, the river could take you, you could go downstream, you could fall down that huge waterfall, and you'd survive, probably, but you wouldn't walk away without a couple bruises, maybe even some broken bones. Next up, we have GCN Mario Circuit. GCN Mario Circuit is, this one is tricky. It's similar to Mario Circuit Wii in that there's a chain chomp, and that's pretty much the only dangerous thing. Well, it's a chain chomp, and there's also grass, but that grass is used for shortcuts. The biggest grass patch on the track is a shortcut that almost everyone does. But I feel like just the fact that the castle's right there, there's got to be somebody watching in that castle. The piranha plants are something to avoid. You don't want to get too close to those. I'm going to have to put this in take caution because I think it's one that you can do okay on. There's definitely less grass to camp out on than Mario Circuit or Parkway, so I'm going to put it here. The Chain Chomp definitely bumps it down from the Mario Circuit territory or the Parkway territory. And it also has water, so you could potentially, if you don't know how to swim, I guess that could be a hazard. Alright, SNES Mario Circuit 3. This is one of the safest tracks in the game. There is no hazards whatsoever. The only dangerous thing is that it is a racetrack and the off-road is used for shortcuts in multiple places. Now, assuming we're talking about you actually being here as a human being, not playing the game, but like you're visiting Mario Circuit 3, you could climb up on one of the blocks and then none of the vehicles would be able to reach you unless they flew over the huge invisible wall. So I'm gonna have to say that this is mostly safe. It's safer than Peach Beach. I'm gonna say it belongs right here. I've thought about it, and if you're sitting on the blocks, you're totally fine. You're not gonna get hit by anybody. No one's even gonna want to try and hit you. There's no, it's not visibly super sunny. I'd imagine it's probably, average temperature there maybe is like 65 degrees. Maybe bring a sweatshirt, but you'll be fine. It's completely safe. If you visit Mario Circuit 3, unless you really mess up, you're walking away fine. Next up is Peach Gardens. So Peach Gardens has Chain Chomps, as we've addressed already. That's something to deal with, something to worry about. There's multiple. Like, it's not just one Chain Chomp like the Mario Circuits, it's actually got several Chain Chomps. That combined with the moles, we don't know, they could potentially have rabies. And the water, which I think is probably fine. We haven't seen any animals in the water, so we can just assume there aren't any. There's a lot of grass that's out of bounds that you could go to, like you could just chill in the grass, have a picnic, but I think that this one is not quite as safe just because of the Chain Chomps, the potential mole problem. I'm gonna say that this is, I think it's safer than Daisy Circuit. I think it belongs in the Take Caution tab, so it goes, yeah. I think the Chain Chomps and the fact that there's so many of them, I'm gonna put it here. I think putting it right here because the pillars crush you. If you're in the huge field of grass that is out of bounds, then you're okay. GCN DK Mountain. I mean, it's a volcano. It's not just a mountain, but as we see, it is a volcano that is erupting. That's not something that you really want to be around. As we've already discussed, lava is very bad. I think that DK Mountain is very dangerous. You get shot out of a cannon, you're driving down a mountain, you could fall off the bike. I mean, if you're trying to walk down the mountain, if you trip and fall, it's not like there's almost anybody out there that can see you, except the mountain itself. He's got a face, but what's he gonna do? It's also a very clear blue sky with the sun out. That combined with the lava, it's probably very hot. If you fall into the trench, who knows how far you fall. If you fall off the bridge, again, who knows how far you fall. Part of me thinks that it goes in very, very dangerous, but part of me wants to put it in extreme lack of safety precautions. Okay, unlike these other tracks here, nah, this goes here. This is way less safe than these. I'm trying to tell myself that we can put it in here because I don't think Maple Treeway should get its own tier, but honestly, this is far less safe than any of these three tracks. At long last, we have reached the end, the final track, N64 Bowser's Castle. Now, many of you probably know that this is a lava track. It's surrounded by lava, and judging by the past decisions that I've made in terms of ranking these tracks, all three of the other lava tracks have ended up in You Will Die. I don't think that this one belongs there, though. I think this goes in here. I would put it at just so far in the bottom of this. It is almost You Will Die. But the reason why I think that it isn't a track that will necessarily kill you is because you don't spend that much time exposed to the lava in comparison to other tracks. It is horribly unsafe. Having wooden bridges going over lava is just asking for one of them to just barely bend down and touch the lava and burn straight through. It does help that it's nighttime on this track, and you're inside a stone castle for a lot of it, which is probably very cool and refreshing. There are still thwomps. Thwomps are instant death. I mean, it's a big piece of rock that will crush you. So for that reason, I'm putting it in extreme lack of safety precautions, but I think you could survive this track. I don't even know. You'd have to be very experienced with the elements that this track provides. Though the Bowser spitting fire, You know, that grass has been there since 2008. It's probably pretty dry. That fire would just light it right up like a candle. So yeah, this is it. This is what I've come up with for my Mario Kart Wii track tier list in regards to the safety of each track. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have made a tier list like this before. I would love to hear some different perspectives. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one.